Hello, you're listening to SMD&D in the Morning with Jordan the Silent PH and Lucian the Sar. Lucian of Gaming. Hey everybody, Jordan here, Silent PH. Welcome to the Saturday Morning D&D show. Lucian, my co-host, how are you? We had a week off.
I am good.
Okay, I'm glad we settled all of that. Yes, I did shave. I am in a play, and I am playing Wayne Hopkins in the show Puffs. It's a Harry Potter parody. It's very funny. The director said I didn't have to shave, but the more I was playing the character, I'm like, this character doesn't have a beard. So we're going clean shaven for a little bit. It's been 3 years I've had a beard because I was like, I'm going to grow it for pandemic. And then the pandemic didn't end.
So are you a method actor where you're like Wayne for the next 6 weeks?
No, I despise method actors. That is not something that an actor needs to do.
Should we call you Wayne?
No.
Gotcha.
No, yeah, that's a whole can of worms you just opened because those people that are like, well,
take from Jordan.
I don't know what a car crash feels, or my favorite is, I don't know what a gunshot feels like, but in order to do this, I'm going to have to get shot by a gun so I can accurately portray. No, you don't have to do that. So, but yeah, welcome everybody. We're going to talk about some Dungeons and Dragons. Mr. Lucian had no electricity last week, which is why we had to cancel. But
I thought I lost my computer last week. When it went down, the sound that the house made as the power zipped through it and then everything shut off and then came back on, my PC wouldn't start for another at least 45 minutes of me turning it off and on,
Ooh.
Finally getting it to come back up. I thought it died.
It must have been the voltage or something was off, and so it didn't have enough. Yeah.
And I have the power protectors and everything because a
surge protector will, it protects from over voltage but not under.
I'm getting there. Because the first time we moved into this house, within 2 weeks of living here, just by turning a breaker off and turning it back on, it killed the first computer I had in this house. So then I bought a more expensive line controlled power so it keeps it from the brown power out and then the actual blackout. So it's not getting a surge and it's not getting the undercurrent but it's still. But I mean, me and you have talked off camera a few times that my computer has been acting wonky.
Yeah.
I think it's overheated a few times playing some of those big games that are really taxing your video cards. It's really pumping that heat out, and I think it's close. I think it's on its last legs. So then I was super worried last week.
Yeah, I would be too.
But
well, last week
made it through.
Last week we were going to talk about this book, Monsters of the Multiverse, that came out, but a whole bunch of other stuff came out. In short, I picked this up. A lot of people were asking, is it worth it? And if you have Volos and all this other stuff, and especially since all of this has been updated on D&D Beyond, if you have access to that, do you need this? No. Some of the monsters are changed up a bit, and they're kind of fun, but it's the same monsters. I was thinking, though, this is really nice to have all of the additional races and stuff in one book. So I can say, pick a race, and then, here are your class options. Here is, I kind of like that. So at the table, it's kind of nice, but it's a reprint of most everything else. So
yeah, that's what I liked. I think that was one part that maybe got lost in the Volos and the Mordenkainens and the those are the two that are in there, right? They didn't throw any Tasha stuff in there, right?
No.
It was just Mordenkainen.
Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. The monsters come from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and Volo's Guide to Monsters. But and then the races come from a lot of different, because the satyrs in there, I think, and stuff.
Yeah.
But Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes had a bunch of lore too. Here's a whole backstory on where the elves came from, and here's all this stuff. So that not necessarily was Forgotten Realms specific, but was very Forgotten Realms adjacent, I guess. And so they also just stripped all that lore out. In this book, you're getting monsters, and that's about it. It is essentially a monster manual too. they just combined it all. So I don't know.
That's good. I mean, if you need it at the table, it sounds like it's more reference to, so it is more useful, like at your table, because you've already picked what creature's going to be in your
so you don't have like 5 books open kind of a thing. But
whereas like Mordenkainen gave you stories of orcs, or like what you said, like there was a lot of backgrounds.
Like where the goblins came from and things like that. So I don't know. I like it. I kind of I'm a collector too, so I just kind of pick it up because I'm like, oh, it's the new book. I don't know. I shouldn't say that though, because I specifically didn't get any of the Critical Role books. And so I'm like, I don't know why I got this one when I have those other monster things. They didn't change the monsters enough for me to warrant buying this, especially when I have it all on D&D Beyond, and I kind of run games through D&D Beyond nowadays.
But was it like you saw the cover and you really liked it?
No, I just kind of wanted it. I wanted to check it out and see what it was.
Was it an Amazon order, or did you go to your game store?
It was an Amazon order, yeah. Okay. And I think I had some Amazon points, so I probably got it for super cheaper.
That might have helped.
Yeah.
I have not picked that one up yet. I keep thinking about the slipcase. I know my store, sometimes when people don't buy the stuff, and if you wait long enough, they'll do some discount stuff because it just sits on the shelf sometimes, and people maybe not want to buy that big of or all 3 of those books at once. But I like the look of the slipcase when I walked by it, and I was buying those Pathfinder books, and I was like, ooh, I picked it up. It was super close. I almost got it. Just like I wanted to get those. They put out that special edition of the original books, the DMG, the Player's Handbook, and then there was a third one there. What was it? Was it the Monster Manual?
It was.
There was 3 in it. I forget what.
No, it was the Monster Manual, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Player's Handbook. Yeah, and then the second one was. Is it Xanathar's Tasha and Mordenkainen of the, or Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse? I could remember. Yeah. So we're really good at our show, guys. We're really good.
Or buying products.
Yeah.
Well, we get them off D&D Beyond and electronically. So.
Yeah. And then I think this came out Monday, but nobody knew until Wednesday when Wizards of the Coast Todd Kenrick published a couple of videos about the Unearthed Arcana that came out. So I was a little surprised, and I went to their website and I'm like, yeah, it says it was released on Monday, but I don't know if I believe them, because usually somebody in the Discord finds it and chats about it. But nobody knew about this until it was released. But Giants Unearthed Arcana, and this is pretty cool. They have some subclass options that are all giant based. So there's a barbarian. That's the subclass. But then a wizard rune crafter, which is kind of like the rune knight, but from a wizard perspective of like I don't know, rune magic. And then there's a Circle of the Primeval, which is a druid one that's really caught my attention and a lot of other people's, because you have a primeval companion, and this is the 3.5 edition ranger druid that had I shouldn't say ranger, because I'm pretty sure the druid in 3.5 had a companion. And this one is like, you can use your wild shape to actually have this companion, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then a whole bunch of feats, which is really hinting at the new Dungeons & Dragons 5.5, 6th edition that we keep talking about, that we're going to have, here's your level 1 feat list, here's your level 4 feat list, here's your level 8 feat list, and that you can't take a level 8 feat when you're level 4. And it seems like they're going that way to flavor your character a little bit. So I could be a, I don't know, human fighter, just a generic fighter, but I have this Fury of the Frost Giants, which is like, I was blessed by a frost giant or something, and so now I have resistance to cold, and when I attack creatures, I can retaliate with a burst of magical blah blah blah. Pretty cool. It's all kind of tied to Constitution, which is something I like, that it's not intelligence based, so everybody kind of wants Constitution. So it works for everybody. And I'm looking at these as a dungeon master thinking I would love this to be not a magical item, but like a blessing that my that something in game, like the characters defeat something, the gods come down and they bless them, or the giants bless them. And so now they have this feat kind of for free. I'm curious the direction Wizards is going with this to see if it's going to work out like that or if it's going to be something completely different.
Well, and even in some of the feat descriptions, it's a lot of elemental stuff and a lot of stuff referencing giants. And what this felt like to me was a great supplement to Storm King's Thunder. Anybody that read Storm King's Thunder, because you dive big time into the history of the giants and what's going on with the Ordning and the battle between them and the dragons, and you get to find out a lot more and learn that lore if you're going to run that campaign about the different types of giants and stone giants and fire giants and cloud giants and just all this stuff. And when I was reading this, it was just bringing up all those memories back again of me reading through that book. Go, oh yeah, there's so much giant lore that they have, and it's a lot of stuff that I like in this, where it's talking about things getting bigger or how to use things that are big in your campaign, kind of things. So whether it's like the barbarian, your size increases, or your companion's a big creature that you're going to be using, or there's runes and power there to make you bigger with some of those feats there. And I just thought those are all kind of cool. And runes were big in Storm King's Thunder also, because that was a lot of the magic that the giants tapped into. Rune magic. So I think it's cool that it's bringing it to us, stuff that we could use, stuff that maybe a character could learn, or even the idea that maybe at some point you let a player in your campaign explore the idea of playing a giant or playing something like that, where D&D really has always confined us to medium size, right? They always stayed, even when they gave us like Centaur, they were really careful not to make it a large creature. Or when they gave us monster races, they didn't give us like ogre. Or if you were a minotaur, I think it was always still, you were just medium creature. They didn't want to go past that for some reason in their combat system. But this kind of feels like maybe they're loosening up on that a little bit. Maybe they're like, okay, maybe it's not such a big deal if somebody there isn't just medium size. I don't know.
I disagree, because I think a lot of this is like you are medium until you use the power, but it specifically says a couple of times that if you're in a place where you can't become large, you don't. Like, it's impossible. Gotcha. So, and you're right. I don't know if that's a balance thing. It doesn't feel like it should be, because even Gary Gygax was just like, if you want to play a dragon, pick up the monster manual and play a dragon. Like, who cares? Yeah. So the idea that we have playable races, but not playable monsters, and that all races need to be, I don't know. But then on the flip side, let's think about that. They did give us tiny fairies, and you can be tiny. I'm pretty sure. Well, you can go, because it's large, medium, small, tiny. And I think the fairies can be tiny. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Like the brownies or something. I'll have to look it up. So, but yeah, anyway, that's somebody in chat will correct me, because they're awesome.
It felt to me like they tried to stay away from huge, which would have been the 4 square token for your character. Like, they always kept you in the 5 by 5 square.
Well,
or less.
Medium is 5 by 5. Large is
or less.
4 is 4.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. I'm sorry, large.
And then huge is another circle outside of that, and then gargantuan is another circle after that. No, fairies have to be small. Okay, thank you, Bill. Yeah, so never mind. We can't go tiny.
Big fairy.
And we can't go large. I don't know. And I wonder if it's because of the reduce and enlarge spell. Because if I could take a large creature and make it, huge, I don't know. Bigly, as they like to say.
Bigly. I always thought it was something about what could surround something, and maybe that's through balance.
That's true.
If you're playing a 4 square, and then all of a sudden you can have 9 things around you beating on you, but I don't know. Is that the only reason, or was there really a truly different reason for that? I wonder if we could find that out there. So I bet somebody on the internet has talked about that somehow, some way.
I don't know.
But maybe we can start to have, bigger things that we can have, because we could, I guess, have your DM in when you went to Tomb of Annihilation down in Chol, I feel like you could buy a large dinosaur that could carry stuff for you, and it was considered large and went around with your party. So you could have a companion.
Oh yeah.
Pet that's large.
Well, even the Drake Ranger, at a certain level, your dragon becomes large.
That was the first time that I thought that they would give it to us, because they would never give that size of a pet to us before.
And the druid shape change, you specifically can shape change into large creatures, like the giant scorpion and the giant centipede and stuff. Not centipede, but spider. Like those are large in the monster manual, so you can shape change into a large creature.
Yeah, so I don't know what the hesitation would have been for that. I'll have to look that up at some point. There must be some story behind why they've always stayed away from that. I don't know. We'll get Jeremy on the show and tell all of us. So,
Mr. Crawford,
keep an eye out.
I've got questions for you.
But I thought of all like rating UA articles that you've read, from ones that we didn't like maybe are a 1, and ones that we liked were a 10. Where I felt like this was like an 8, 9, or a 10.
I thought it was a solid
really
10.
Good.
This is, I mean, these look really fun.
Yeah.
Really curious about that Circle of Primeval. I like that a lot. But I also like pets, so I'm always taking Find Familiar and things like that, so we'll see.
Yeah.
It's up there. I think this is really cool, and it makes me wonder where, what is this for? What did you think it was for? Like,
yeah, do you think it's a book specifically, or were they just, is this one where they're truly trying out mechanics and ideas, or is this like you said, a precursor to something? Because I know some people have been trying.
It's a precursor.
Yes,
like if it's not a big hit, they'll pull it back and say we were just testing new stuff, but this is a big hit. Everyone's talking about it, so this is going in a book. What book do you think it is going into? What's our next book? Which is really what this podcast has turned into. I think it's just Jordan and Lucian talking about what do we think the next book is going to be.
We're changing the show.
Yeah.
D&D, what's the next book? Well, so our hints are Druid, Circle of Primeval.
Yep.
And when we see that, I think of, okay, maybe the past, maybe something... deep dark forests
Dinosaurs
that stay undiscovered. But then you have Path of the Giants. Giants are always known in a lot of the history of any of the worlds. They always people like to put them as they were here before.
Yeah, the Titans.
Humanity came,
yeah,
and maybe their kingdom is always on the wane. But they used to be big. They used to be the civilization. So that, I feel like, gives us a hint. Maybe we're getting a book that goes back in time a little bit. Maybe we get a book that's going to show us some like early Forgotten Realms stuff, or maybe an early campaign world.
Well, and I'm wondering the same thing. And is this tying into Critical Role? Because I haven't super been following Critical Role, but I know you just sent me a clip this morning of is it Brendan?
Brennan?
Brennan, is that his name?
I think there's no D in there. Yeah, Brennan.
So he's running a like Critical Role, I don't know, side tangent game. But it's set in the like pre-Cataclysm, like way early Critical Role history. So like super, super early. And I don't know if there are giants necessarily in that, because I don't know much about Critical Role lore. But that made me think like, okay, is this, I mean, obviously I bet Critical Role has Jeremy Crawford or I should say Critical Role and Wizards of the Coast have each other on speed dial. And I'm sure it's just like, hey, do you want to incorporate this into your next campaign so that we can make some extra money? And like, it's, beneficial. So we'll see. I was also thinking, because the war between the giants and the dragons was a big thing in the Forgotten Realms, we could go back in time and there could be like, here you are playing now, or maybe not an undiscovered continent, but like, I don't know, something like that.
What if you're playing when the humans are first arriving?
Yeah.
So everything that's there now, you're new to this place, because in Forgotten Realms now, humans have been around for a while. All the other races have been around for a long time, but you've also been around for a long time if you're human, and it's kind of centric to those places. But before that, all that history that's there, what would it even look like if you were playing when humans first made it to the continent or first started showing up?
And the giants and the dragons were fighting all of the time.
Full-on wars going on.
And you're just kind of like, I just want to survive, guys. And so I could definitely see we have these group patrons kind of thing coming out. And so what if we have, you have to pick a side. Are you on the side of the dragons or the giants? And I don't know.
I also like the idea of a setting where maybe everything is giant sized. So maybe it's like the kaiju world, or it's the oversized world, or like we're journeying to the center of Forgotten Realms, and we find out that at the center of the earth everything's much bigger. So, it's like that trope of, look, it's a mosquito. Oh my god, it's the size of an airplane. Or whatever.
Super Mario World or Super Mario Brothers 3. Like world 3 or 4 is like the big world. That was a fun one.
So something, maybe they're gonna do something like that, so you can actually have Godzilla fighting King Kong kind of stuff in your campaign.
So then I was Googling giants in Magic the Gathering, because we haven't had a Magic the Gathering since Strixhaven, and I think that's still a direction that they could go. Giants appear all over Magic the Gathering, not surprising. I don't know much about this, but Zendikar caught my eye, and we were kind of talking about that in the Discord, that it's kind of a prehistoric land in that sense, and that, I don't know, like, I'm looking at it now trying to find things, but it's populated by goblins, elves, and vampires. Like, I don't know, but there's like a lot of giants, and it just kind of had that old-timey, I don't know, like raw primeval world, I guess. And so I don't know. This could be a cool thing. Zendikar was my guess if it's going to be a Magic the Gathering setting, but I'm not entirely sure.
It's one that I know is popular in the Magic the Gathering setting, so it makes sense that if they have a list of ones that they're thinking about, I could see Zendikar being on that. So I think that could be cool, and really this could lend itself to any type of, looking back at that UA. Yeah, you could see some, influences of Magic the Gathering in there, because even just any type of green, mass summoner, there always seems to be something cool and big that you're getting out of every green deck, right? There's always some big T-Rex thing you can pull out, or, some big creature. So that really could. And then I could see your Wizards of Runecrafting being your blue and yours, your blue-black stuff, or your blues and something. And I could see that. I think that could fit there either way. You have two good guesses, I'm thinking.
Another theory is that we got Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. Yeah. Are they going to make basically that book, but for giants? So, like, here's a book about dragons. Here's some dragon monsters. Here's some dragon subclasses. Here's some dragon feats. And now we're going to do a giant version. And it's pretty much the same book, but we're giving you new monsters. Here's some lore.
Two sides of the war.
Yeah.
That could be good. Almost like you had in when they did the demons and the devils, the two sides of the war. You got a really good in-depth look at the battles between them, or what's going on between them down in hell.
And finally,
that could be cool.
We could run our Living in the Land of the Lost
campaign
that everybody that silly show was so bad. Yeah. Was it just called Land of the Lost? Pets. Yeah, they remade it in 2009 as a movie. That's right. I never saw it, but Land of the Lost. I'm a sucker for that journey to the center of the earth. And there's this weird prehistoric world. X-Men does it with the Savage Lands. Like, I always thought that was really cool. Yep. So I am not opposed to this. Like, I think this could be a lot of fun.
Version. There's some island out there that has nothing but giants.
That has never been touched. It's preserved, And I like that idea a lot. If we got more dinosaur stat blocks, I would be very happy. So they don't really test stat blocks for monsters. We don't get a lot of release like that but I'm curious. So I don't know. I don't know much about Zendikar. I was kind of theory crafting with, what's his name? Aetherhub, who is the guy that I worked with for the Strixhaven videos, and he does Magic the Gathering lore. So we were talking kind of like casually, mostly because he just had a baby, and we were talking. He's like, she cries all the time. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know, because my baby also cried all the time. You just figure it out. You wait, I guess, and feed it. I don't know. It's hungry. So we were talking about that, and because there's a new Magic the Gathering Baldur's Gate setting coming out, which is kind of cool.
Those cards looked really cool.
They're releasing some really fun cards. Specifically, there's like a card called White Plume Adventurer that I thought was really cool. So they're hearkening back to White Plume Mountain, which is not in the Forgotten Realms, so it's kind of interesting that it's part of this set. And there's a Tomb of Horrors adventurer, so they're throwing in some Tomb of Horror canon stuff in there, and it should be kind of fun. That'll be interesting. I did finish, I don't think I told you this, but I did finish my collection of the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. I got the whole, not all, like there's like 600 cards, but if I had the borderless version of a card instead of the actual version, then I didn't bother getting the actual version because I had the borderless version. So, but I have a whole, they're really pretty to look at. So I flipped through them. I'm like, this is awesome.
So there were 600 cards in that set?
Well, if you count the duplicates. So like, here's one, here's a borderless, here's an alternative art one. That's what I mean. They're all the same card, but they have 3 different versions of it.
How many cards then are you talking is in your collection?
Oh, I want to say 200 or 300. I don't know.
And that's at least one representation of each of the cards.
Of each of the cards, yeah.
Okay. It
was a lot, yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah.
That's a lot of artwork on those cards and a lot of mechanics on those cards.
Cool.
And man, that was such a cool mechanic that they added to Magic the Gathering too. Just the adventure,
the dungeon delve and stuff.
The dungeon delve. Yeah.
Their initiative is coming to the next one. And I don't exactly know how it works yet, but I don't think anybody does because the cards aren't out. But there's a lot of cards that are like, when you play this, you get initiative X, Y, and Z, and it's like, oh.
We should do it at Gen Con. We should pick a night where we play. We just have our decks of.
Oh, I'll totally bring some decks. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will play Magic, sir. That'll be fun.
That would be good.
I'll build a couple
at
decks.
Dinner, just throwing out some games.
Now that I know how to play, it's fun. Yeah. Man, so I don't know. I'm really curious. I like the giant stuff. I think Oh, here's a good question for you. If you had to pick a side between dragons and giants, what you gonna pick?
Originally, dragons, right? Like growing up, everything dragons.
Heck
but
yeah.
The minute I ran and really started reading Storm King's Thunder, I think I'm now Team Giant. I think I'm like moving to that side. I think they're really interesting. The things that were going on with them and where they're at now,
they're a lot cooler than just big humans. I'll give them that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on that I didn't realize. Whereas dragons are cool, always. Dragons are cool, but now I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I think before that, dragons for sure, but now for sure, I think Team Giant. I'll go Team Giant.
Yeah. So anyway, Unearthed Arcana's out there. I would encourage you guys to go read it if you're interested in it, I guess. It's very interesting.
Give us your guesses, what you think.
Yeah, I don't know, it could be so many things, but...
And here's what it is. No matter what book it ends up being, everything I saw in that UA article makes me think I'll love whatever book it is. Whether it's a MTG book or it's a new setting or it's tied to Critical Role. The 3 things I saw there made me think, I think I'm going to want this book if this is what is just part of the couple of things that are in it. Yeah. This is a book I want.
For sure.
This will be added to my game.
Yep. Well, and yes, Moa Peach, he's been doing the #Drow Patreon game, so he wants to remind us that I still want to do that. I do too. I'm gonna play. I need to get through.
I sent Jordan some really cool stuff.
He did, and I did not buy it because I feel very poor at the moment. But I gotta get through June because I'm in this play. It's crazy. We open next Friday, which will be fun. This is also why I don't have a lot of videos. Although I have Monday off for Memorial Day, I think I'm gonna try and film a really good, awesome, long video. I have an idea. But let's talk about Kickstarters. You have a couple Kickstarters you wanted to shout out about.
I did. Well, and I saw we all like Kobold Press, right?
Yeah.
So they're always ones that anytime they put out anything, I thought they were pretty cool. So I saw that one that was Campaign Builder Cities and Towns. And I know you buy a lot of Kobold Press books too. And you have always used them in your campaigns. What do you think about one that is about campaigns, building cities, building things. Is this one that you, when you saw it, you thought, I'd give it a look just because their quality, the kind of stuff they put out, or is this one you would pass because you're pretty good at building your own cities and towns? And
yeah, I'm not good at that. So I definitely like this, and I like that it. And I'll put a link in our notes here too, or sorry, in the chat. But it's called Campaign Builder Cities and Towns. There's a hardcover book, and also a box of like tiles to help you build a city, which I thought was kind of interesting. Or I'm not entirely sure. It's just like maps and stuff that you can utilize.
Yeah, like a map folio, they called it. And
yeah.
I think a lot of people are using those ones so that you can generate, encounter areas and things.
So here's the thing. This is cool. Like, if you like this, if you want to build your own stuff, that's fun. I am to the point where I will pick up my, Eberron's, what's that called? I was about to say Tolis, but it's, Sharn. The city of Sharn in Eberron is huge. There's entire source books just on Sharn. If I need city stuff, I'm going to steal that and I'm going to call it, Jordan's city on the mount, and then we're going to use that. And I'll just use Sharn stuff. Like I don't necessarily need to build it from the ground up. That being said, I do love random tables to build stuff, to be inspired by, and I specifically picked up Worlds Without Number, which is an RPG, but also that book is very heavy on creating like pantheons of gods and cities and towns and et cetera, et cetera. So there's value in that. Now, I did not back this. Not because it's a bad product. I'm sure it's going to be great. It's just that I'm going to use a pre-existing town and just make it my own, I think, rather than doing something like this. But
we're never ones to tell you to go buy anything. We always bring up stuff that we're interested in. Here's the thing that caught my eye that makes me really. It says, in addition to the Campaign Builder hardcover and PDF editions, this will fund the creation of the folio, which are the wet, dry erase battle maps. Also, the Roll20 versions. You will get the Roll20 versions. So I play all my games on Roll20, and I thought that could be a nice hook for me to get me as a player. So if you're a big Roll20 fan, maybe you might look at this and see if it's something you want. Because I think for Roll20, that's what I love about it, is that I can always put out really cool maps for my players who live all over the country, and I can't get them at my table, but they still can move their tokens around. They can still see dice rolling on, the virtual tabletop. And to have a nice, cool map always just makes the sessions better, I think. So that was the one hook that kind of got me into it. And it was Kobold Press. So I'm always willing to give, those guys a look at any product they're bringing out, because I've always liked everyone I have bought. Even if I haven't bought everything they've done, the ones I have bought I thought have been quality and I've liked them. So I'll always take a look at something they're throwing out there. So I thought that was an interesting one.
Yeah, no, for sure. They're, Kobold Press is great. They make great stuff. I have many of their books.
I also saw one that was called Aurora Age of Desolation.
Yeah, this one is interesting.
It really was the minis and the artwork that kind of captured me first. And then it was like, okay, this seems like a pretty cool setting for you to take a look at. And a lot of this stuff was all 5e compatible or 5e related or meant for 5e. The stuff I saw just recently. And I thought it was great. And I think if you always get a good artist for your Kickstarter, you're always going to get my eyes, because whenever I just see an image or like a picture of something cool going on, I'm like, oh, let me check out what they're saying here. You can grab me. So I always push back on that. Never judge a book by its cover. I won't judge it, but I'll pick it up and look at it if it has a good cover. So I'll at least check it out. Covers
definitely catch your eye. There's a reason about that. Yeah. So.
And I like that they have a really cool miniature of a dragon in there, very reminiscent of what I thought MC DM stuff was doing, Matt Colville's group was doing, where they had some really cool minis when they did their very first Kickstarter that I think brought a lot of people to come take a look at it.
Yeah, and too. These minis look awesome, but they're not printed yet, so that's where I'm always worried, because I just remember that I had, I think it was DM Nathan bought a bunch of Critical Role minis through a Kickstarter. And yeah, the composites, like the cell shaded stuff, or not cell shaded, but like, the computer render of it is awesome. But then if it goes to kind of a crappy printer, all of a sudden the ones you get are like, these are not the same molds that I wanted. So I don't know. I want STL files, I guess, sometimes when I look at those. Not that I have a 3D printer, but.
And then let me give you one more little hook here. It sounds like this is a book about 5 realms that are ruled by monarch dragons.
Ooh.
Each of them. So there's like one that's a lightning charged realm. There's a gloom covered realm of swamps. There's the scorched wastelands of the volcano. There's the ice pyramids.
Yeah.
Massive, dark, and gloomy forest. And each one of them have a dragon that rules over those lands. And I thought that was kind of a cool idea to have a world that's built around maybe the 5 kingdoms or the 5 realms of some big creature that is the overall protector. And what cool things could you do there, getting into that lore and history, or how would you use it in your games?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very cool. 5e compatible for all you that are still out there playing 5e. Just might be something you look at. I felt like it looked like a well put together Kickstarter. So you might check out.
It looks very professional done. And hey, they've raised $300,000, which, I mean, 5 years ago when a tabletop RPG Kickstarter went over 100,000, it was impressive. And now it feels like, these guys have 20 days to go. Maybe they'll get to 500,000, and you're just like, oh, it didn't break 1 million, huh? Like, I don't know. It's just kind of funny where I'm like, the norm feels like $1 million now, and it's crazy the amount of stuff going on right now. But
so I'll give one last one out there. Everyday Heroes. So I love a superhero. I feel like I buy all the superhero TTRPGs that are out there, even though I don't think I've played a single superhero role-playing game session ever, nor have I run one. But I love them. I love reading them. I love thinking about them. I love pretending and telling myself I'm going to run a campaign of them someday. I lied. I have played many games of Mass. A New Generation. I don't know why I didn't think that was a superhero game, but it is absolutely a teenage superhero game, and it was fantastic. So that's the only one I have done. And I recommend that game if you haven't bought it. Everyday Heroes, here's where I think Jordan would be a little interested, or maybe some of those in the chat. Not only are they doing the rule book for Everyday Heroes, basically like the 80s action role-playing game that you could possibly think of, they list off some of the franchises and books that they're going to create using this system they're talking about. Do you want to play a little? Well,
and so this system, just to clarify, They advertise it as the spiritual successor to D20 Modern. So that was the 3.5 era, right? Where Wizards was really pushing like, everyone, we need to use a D20 systems, and now so they kind of upgraded the 3.5 D20 Modern with 5th edition rules, and then now it's called Everyday Heroes.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yeah, so, these are cool.
Would you like to play a campaign, or would you like to play maybe a Highlander campaign?
Yeah. That could be fun.
See that show? Maybe you're a fan of the movies. What about Total Recall?
No.
No, not a Total Recall fan?
No.
How about Pacific Rim?
Pacific Rim, 100%.
You seem like a Pacific Rim. Yeah. Okay, okay.
Escape from New York, 100%.
Snake Plissken in a moment.
Hell
and The Crow?
Yeah.
Think about a Crow campaign.
Could be good.
That could be really good. But also, Rambo's in there. Universal Soldier, I thought, was an interesting one. Kong Skull Island. So they put these in here as other books that they're developing and are part of like stretch goals and part of the Kickstarter itself. Like, I think what you're going to do is when you get to the backer kit, you can add these on as add-ons of these campaign settings to use with the core rule book.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was interesting. I feel like there's a good mix of different types of games you could play there, where, like with your Total Recall, you can go maybe your cyberpunk route. Universal Soldier, you could go, a modern day Battlefield apocalypse kind of thing. Kong Island, Pacific Rim, you've got your big big creatures fighting each other, or you're part of giant robots fighting big monsters, or you're helping big monsters fight other big monsters with Kong Skull Island. Who knows how that'll work? Because maybe you get to play a Kong. Who knows? Escape from New York, I think, would be an interesting one, because that's like a street level modern day, but you could use really cool maps of New York and have your players trying to get out of some really terrible disaster that's happened, or like there's just roving gangs and crazies all around for some reason, because they turned Manhattan into a prison island, and that's just where they send everybody that's bad, and then they just leave them there, and those people can't leave there, but nobody knows what goes on in there, but they're like, we don't care, just keep shipping them there. That kind of mentality of a campaign. And you could run a campaign where your party is accidentally there or has to go in, extract somebody out, just like the movie. If you go through the movie plot, I think there's a lot of stuff you could play around with based off of that movie. Rambo could be your old style, Vietnam style, jungle warfare, one person trying to escape from being captured by authorities kind of campaign. So I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff in there, and it harkens back to lots of movies we all went to, say, Blockbuster, and picked up the DVD and rented and watched over and over, or it came up on the HBO channel or this other channel and you watched it again and again just because it happened to be there.
Recording
like
off of TV. That was
yeah. I feel like I've seen all of these multiple times. Like there was never one here that I've only seen, I just watched it the one time.
Right.
All of these I've watched many times whenever I happen to stumble upon them.
Yeah, I'm curious about the system, because it also feels like you could just be like a firefighter or a spy, or I don't know, like there's lots of
hero.
Yeah. So you're just a guy that has stuff. You're John McClane.
Yeah.
Running around.
Things start happening, some catastrophe, earthquake, a volcano rises in Idaho, all of a sudden right in the middle of Idaho. What do you do?
It's going to happen. That the Yellowstone
or the apocalypse.
Yellowstone apocalypse is gonna.
There you go. You could play
under that giant caldera.
Yellowstone.
So cool. Those are some Kickstarters. I wanted to throw out that we have PAX West coming up, which is in Seattle, and that is September 2nd and 5th. Of course, Gen Con is the beginning of August, and Lucian and I are both going to Gen Con. It is getting expensive to travel that far for me, so I was thinking next year I might try to go to PAX West, and maybe this year I'll try to go to PAX West to check it out. I've never been to a PAX. I lived in Seattle for 5 years and I never went to a PAX. Oh no, I did. Oh no, you're right. I went up to visit some friends and they gave me a badge and I went. That was a long time ago, but yeah.
I was like, I've never played a superhero. Oh wait, no, I have.
Yeah, I have. Of it. But PAX West is coming up, and then in December, the first week of December, December 2 through the 4th, is PAX Unplugged in Philly, and that was another one.
That's what I have been to.
Yeah, and I know that Ted's gone and a couple other people, and that's the board game one. So that's the one I would be most interested in. But I kind of want to try and go see a live Acquisitions Incorporated show. I think that would be a lot of fun. There. They'll probably have it at PAX West as well, but it would be fun to go to either.
One thing I liked about PAX Unplugged, for those that are maybe thinking about it, it felt like a definitely miniature Gen Con. But you did see a lot of the same big vendors there. So if you missed out in Gen Con and walking through the big vendor hall, a lot of the top ones were still at PAX Unplugged. Yeah. And it was not so crowded that you felt claustrophobic trying to get to all the stuff. So it was more of a laid back, more of a different... But that convention center is not as big. I will tell you, parking is a effing nightmare in the downtown Philadelphia.
I'm sure.
And there is a cool food mall right near there, but it's definitely a much more condensed space. Whereas if you do get the opportunity to go to Gen Con and maybe you're choosing just one or the other, Gen Con's a much more spread out. There's so many things you can go to. There's so many different streets where there are rows of restaurants and things that you can do, and they've got a lot more going on. So it's definitely bigger and more spread out. So if you enjoy that, but it also can be pretty crowded, and it can also be overwhelming. If you don't want that, you might think about maybe PAX Unplugged, because that's a little bit smaller of it.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
Yeah. So I don't know. We're back. People are going to conventions. We're not shutting down anymore. So it's kind of exciting. This isn't in our notes, but I wanted to say quickly that WizKids did announce a bunch of new miniatures. One of them is like a $300 Vecna statue that's like really cool looking. This Vecna has the Tome of Evil. Is that what it's called? It's like the Book of Darkness for Vile Book of Darkness. I think that, but he has it like under his rib cage. It's like part of the mini, and I was like, that's kind of cool. And then they also announced that they're doing some, which Milestone reminded me in chat here, that they are doing some minis for the 80s cartoon characters.
Oh, I did see those.
Yeah. So kind of cool if you're interested in that kind of stuff. There's also a slew of new Paizo books coming out. Give us the Paizo corner.
Yeah, because they were doing Paizo Con. I believe it was either last weekend or it's this weekend. They've been advertising it, and they were doing a lot of their new kind of release announcements. And I think we've seen some of these pictures before. We've seen hints of them, or they've given us the names of them. But this is where they really dove into them. And Lost Omens, the Knights of the Last Wall book was announced, and this is a... And again, these books are really big for Pathfinder. They're packing a lot of information in these books. They are not small books. And it's cool campaign setting. We talked a little bit about there's a new adventure path coming out, Abomination Vaults, but the one I was really interested in was Starfinder Drift Crisis, because that was the one that reminded me of, the D&D, the Forgotten Realms Cataclysm, right? That reminded me of, the spell burn, the spell plague, or some huge thing that happens that's just not only world breaking, but like physics breaking, or there's a rule that we all thought was hard and fast, and now it's gone. Like we could travel faster than light using this stuff. The Drift Crisis has shut all that down, right?
So now it's going to take 12 lifetimes to get to where I was or something.
So now what happens, and you could run kind of campaigns that way. More than 100 new player options. I mean, there's just so much in these books.
Yeah, this Starfinder Drift Crisis looks really cool.
That one is one that might get me in it. Now, here's the other thing I was thinking about, though, too. I tried to play Starfinder, a couple of games of it, and it's still based, and it's a modified Pathfinder system.
Yeah.
But I think I like the Pathfinder 2 system better. I kind of want Starfinder 2.
Starfinder is based on a hybrid of Pathfinder 1, Pathfinder 2, because they made Starfinder before 2nd edition came out. Yeah. And so that's what I've heard. I haven't played either, but I have heard that people are kind of... Yeah. And I wonder if that was intentional to kind of capitalize on, well, people are familiar with Pathfinder. This 2nd edition might not take off. Maybe we shouldn't go all in. But now it seems like a lot of people really like 2nd edition. And if you could update the Starfinder rules, that would be kind of cool.
I think I would definitely run Starfinder if they do port it to the Pathfinder 2 rules. Because then I'm learning Pathfinder 2 and I feel like, okay, I'll be able to do Starfinder also. Whereas right now I feel like if I try to learn that and then go back and learn an old edition...
They want to make Pathfinder 2, or they were kind of marketing it that it's backwards compatible. So,
and I tried to play Starfinder, and it's a little wonky. It was not as easy to pick up as I thought it was going to be, because there was something. It felt like some of the rules didn't click with each other, and it felt like it was a rough draft version of a game system. It didn't feel as refined as I really wanted it to. And, I'm sure that's what happens with gaming systems anyways, but that would have been the same if somebody just jumped into 3.5 and hadn't played 3. I could see there's the same kind of criticism where you're like, geez, some of these things don't seem like they fit together right, but that's because people are just bringing so many pieces together and shoving them together into one system. That's kind of what the Starfinder feels like. Like, one class will feel like it plays a certain way, and then when you look at the rules of the other class, it's so different, it's foreign almost, and you're like, does that even work the same? Or there's a point system or a pool system here, but then this system has something
where you're like, why does this sorcerer have a bonus action but my rogue have like these other die that I can use for...
It could use some refining as far as I could tell. From a new player who's only tried to play, I want to say 3 or 4 sessions, I felt like I was struggling trying to understand the rules and the classes and how they interacted with each other. But, for those that probably play it often and have really dove in, maybe it's not as hard and they're just like, well, you just got to figure this piece out or whatever. So
yeah.
But I'd be interested if they did the Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Starfinder, and I could do the Drift. I would do the Drift Crisis. Sounds super cool for that. That would be 2 things put together would be perfect for me.
So I heard a rumor, and this is rumor, I don't know if it's true, that the next Paizo video game, like they've been making those Pathfinder games, is going to be a Starfinder game. The next video game that they do.
Oh my.
Which would be pretty cool.
Because I love Path of the Righteous.
Yeah.
As much as I just said I want to play tabletop Pathfinder 2 because I feel like it's really cool. But when the computer's doing all the rules for me and I can just play the characters and do the things, that game is super cool. If you have not got that game, just put it on your wish list for like a 50% off sale or even better than that and get it. Don't let it go by and never get it. Get it on a sale if you haven't gotten it already. And it's a fantastic game. I love it. I love it a lot.
So we'll see. I don't know. That was something I read somewhere. I'm not really sure, but
I hope so. That'd be cool.
And I know it's the title of this video where we were going to talk about neutral or setting specific game mechanics. The idea behind that conversation came from last week when we didn't get to actually do it. So I don't think we're going to get to it today, but the idea of, and I guess this kind of comes back to that D20 or D20 modern, the everyday heroes. Like, do you like a generic system that I can take and play Rambo or The Crow kind of thing? So maybe we'll talk about this next week because I want to talk about games. But that's something to ponder, and we'll circle back around and talk about that in the future because I like that idea if it's married or not.
Well, I want to talk about one quick thing before you.
Oh, go ahead.
I feel like I saw Jordan in a video with our friend talking about gaming recently, although his camera kept shutting off, so we didn't get to
Ben,
see
yeah, Questing
through
Beast.
most of it. Mr. Ben. How what'd you think? How'd that go? I watched that whole thing and was fascinated with all
that was fun.
The OSR questions and the idea of bringing a couple of newer content creators, I think from his point of view, that have been doing OSR stuff, and then he's kind of been a long time OSR creator.
Yeah,
just kind of feeling you guys out, seeing where you're at. I thought that was super interesting. There were a lot of questions in there when he asked you. I'm like, well, here's Lucian's answer. I have my answers. These are all really good.
Yeah. So that was just an interview with me and a young lady named Kelsey, and Kelsey writes OSR and 5th edition material. She's written a couple of things.
Some adventures.
Not a couple, I should say. She's written quite a few adventures. Yeah. And she's a really good writer. Ben is Ben from Questing Beast. He wrote Knave. Like, he's also a very OSR writer. And then, I don't know, just me, because, like, why not? But they had, the Arcane Library. Thank you, Jancy. But yeah, they have his whole format is like, he's like, hey, I'm going to have this guest on. Do you have any questions for him? And then people write a bunch of questions. And so he was just picking from those. But it was a fun interview. It's on Questing Beast channel. I've also linked it on my channel, so you can check it out there. If you're in our Discord, it's in the announcements. That was a fun chat, though. Like, I like those. I've actually done quite a few podcasts recently. I was on a podcast with startplaying.games. That company has a podcast that they're doing, and I did a quick episode of that. I don't know if it's aired. I'm not sure. And then my friend Kugo from Kugo the Mighty, he had me on his podcast a couple days ago, which I don't know when that will go out either, but I'll be sure to link it. So
very cool. I just thought there was some. Ben is really good about asking. Well, I guess the people that sent them in, but and framing the questions that you guys were answering.
Yeah,
because it spanned from settings to what you liked about it to you guys had some mechanics talks and like things you liked or didn't like and those kinds of things. So I thought it was a really fun
and video. I was able to talk about, and I'm curious about this for you, but I really think that one of the virtues of D&D, one of its strengths, is having a adventure that I can run and play, and then you can run and play the same adventure. We have very different experiences with it, but we have that common, like, oh man, like when you ran through Storm King's Thunder, what did you do in this version? What did you do here? And we have that shared experience, even though we don't have that shared experience. And that's the reason I think, like, Marvel's so popular. You know, like, I read a comic or I read a book, or you saw the movie, and we both have an idea of Spider-Man in our head, and we like Spider-Man for similar reasons, but we had a different... So, but 70% of campaigns are in homebrew.
For OSR stuff, right?
No, for D&D 5th edition.
Oh, well,
OSR, it's probably even more. Like, I don't, there isn't a specific setting for OSR, I don't think. But, like, I like the idea of all of us playing in the realms, or all of us playing in Eberron, so we can all have that cool Eberron experience. And that's, I think, what they were trying to do. So, I don't know, like, what, do you like that? Do you like homebrew settings more? Like, I think that's one of the coolest parts of D&D, and I'm a little surprised that 70% of people are like, well, I only play in homebrew, or I only do homebrew. And then I'm also even more surprised that there are people that are like, I refuse to play in the realms, you know? Yeah. I refuse to play in an Eberron game. Homebrew or nothing.
Yeah, I think I'm in the first part of what you're talking about. I like the idea of having that shared, and that's why I put the homebrew I wanted to do in Forgotten Realms, but it was across the ocean on an island that doesn't get talked about much, right? Or
but then you can use the same gods and things like that. But now
I can, so the players still had a reference. And in fact, Session 0, they started out in Waterdeep, boarded a ship, and we went the 2 months it took to sail across the ocean to the new land they were going to the brand new thing where I could do all my homebrew stuff. So I always do like that idea that there's a connection to it, and I like that I put my homebrew in it versus doing a full homebrew from scratch. But I mean, me and you have talked about cool homebrew ideas that I would love to take all the way through, and maybe that wouldn't have anything to do with Forgotten Realms too. But I think playing games and having that experience with the players, I like that idea where I can say, hey, when you went through, you know, Tomb of Annihilation, did you guys find this, or which god did you have, you know, as your that you took, or what did you do for this thing, or what did you do? How'd you guys fix the ordning? How did you guys get past this thing? Our group had such trouble with it, and, you know, oh, your group walked right through. What happened? How'd that happen? You know, so I like having those kinds of conversations. I think it does bring people together. Even though they didn't even play, they still can come together and tell their each side of it and feel like they've shared something there. Yeah, for sure. I feel like the only thing that I didn't see you guys say in that whole thing that I just felt like OSR different from, you know, 5e or the games that we see right now, it really, I feel like, came down to one thing, is like one tries to be more deadly and make you less tied to your character at first, like, because you're going to funnel to get going, versus you're creating superheroes or super legends, and you know you're creating superheroes or super legends kind of in a 5e campaign. You're not necessarily creating Farmer John, right? And I feel like that's really where the difference comes from. One group is really trying to do something that's a lot less, a lot harsher, and a lot more, maybe there's more impact or there's more danger to losing ultimately, whereas another game is, it's rare people lose characters, although it still does happen in Dungeons and Dragons. We, you know, our guy almost died in our last session, and I think when our dungeon master told us about the other group he brings from it, because again, remember, Danimal's running two groups through the same Dungeon of the Mad Mage, they had a death. Their warlock died, disintegrated at some point. We're coming up to a point where one of us could be disintegrated, and there's no coming back. Right? So,
well, but you can come back. You know, like for 5th edition, they have all kinds of resurrections, and then wish spells can bring you back even if they're fully disintegrated.
I think if you go that high to a wish,
yeah. So I guess that's my point. Like the OSR doesn't have a lot of those.
Yeah, OSR is just like roll another one, or have 4, because, you know, some of them are going to die anyway. So you might as well just have a couple. So I think it's just a different, and it's not one's good or bad. It's just, hey, that's the style I want to try.
So. And it's really much a push. Like the OSR, I feel, is a big push on that. This is and now we're just getting into really good questions, but another chat group that I'm a part of, we were talking about like, is the OSR dead? Because we did talk about that, didn't we? Because you can't reinvent like the classic 80s or 70s and 80s of
You're
RPGs.
a renaissance of something that happened.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, has it been done to death? I mean, and Lex and I are doing these game reviews with Lex, and a lot of it is like, well, that's an interesting mechanic, but it's turning into, is this just a cool, interesting mechanic? And how many times can you reinvent rolling dice? And how, this is so edgy and hard, like how difficult does it have to be? But there has to be a balance because you want to succeed. Yeah. The dungeon master wants you to
different ways are there to track your rations?
Exactly.
How many torches you
have. So I don't know. I'm really curious about the future of the indie RPG scene. And if you watch that video, a lot of us were talking about making not whole campaign settings, but little things, much like our cliff. Like, the cliff thing we're talking about is like a mini setting that's like, well, it's just a cliff at the end of the world. And then I can take that and put it anywhere I want in my custom game. And I feel like the OSR does that really well, where it's like, here's a forest. Now take this forest and put it wherever you want. Like, the game is just a forest, so go, and
I'm still actively hunting for the perfect artist to create that perfect scene as the starting point for that.
We're not hunting very hard, I will admit.
I'm watching Twitter hard for artists that put their stuff up.
There you go.
But I know we're almost done. I don't even care about what games I played. I did get to play it. You might not have because you're doing your thing. What's this whole Ars Magica thing?
Yeah, have you heard of this game?
What is going on here?
This is called, so I bought a new RPG. This is called Ars Magica.
I've heard of it, but
it came out in the 90s. And this is the 5th edition version. Now, it's not 5th edition D&D. It's the 5th version of this. They've revised it 5 times. So, but you are all wizards. And I thought that was kind of cool. The idea is that everybody is a wizard. You're all super magical and powerful. And I've gotten through the first chapter. Which is kind of like the introduction. So I'm still reading it. But the idea behind it is that we're all powerful wizards, and the review that I was reading said that this is one of the most interesting ways magic is handled in an RPG. And so I was very curious about it. Yeah. There are lots of books. This was a popular setting, I guess, even though I hadn't heard of it until recently. So I want you to add to the notes that when you do get through that book, I want you to bring this back up because I want to have a huge conversation about it. Because I've always heard about it, but never got into it. I picked it up a ton of times on the shelf. I've seen it, but I've never dived in detail into it. So I'd love to at some point. Yeah, Grinar in chat says about it reminds of a Mage of the Ascension. Or heard of that? Yeah, and that's a White Wolf game, and I have read Mage. And I like it a lot. That's a whatever. And yeah, this will be a Jocular Junction video when I finish reading Ars Magica, I think. And I get through my play because I got to get through June, guys. You got to get after that. I work, I hang out with my kid, I go to rehearsal, I come home, I have like a half hour of TV and I fall asleep because I'm tired. Yeah. That's our show. Anything else? Wrap us up, because there are so many shows that just dropped that I need to go watch and binge watch. There's so many things I need to do. Everyone's talking about Obi-Wan. Stranger Things dropped. Yeah, lots of stuff to do, people. Apparently, Vecna's in Stranger Things 4 because people are Googling Vecna a whole bunch. Vecna. And let's do this. Wizards put out a Vecna video. Leave us a comment. Send us an email, join our Discord, all that stuff. If you listen as a podcast, consider joining us live on Saturday mornings on YouTube and Twitch, because we're there. Links down in the doobly-doo. I will see you guys next week with another Saturday morning D&D show where we'll talk about something. It'll be great. D&D stuff. Yeah. Anything else, sir? No. All right, that's it. Things to do. Take care, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.